Hey guys, let's get more news about Miami Heat, but first, don't forget to subscribe and leave your like. Caleb Martin affirms his satisfaction with a $32 million contract with the Philadelphia 76ers, despite rejecting a $65 million offer from Miami Heat. Caleb Martin turned down a significant offer from Miami, leaving behind millions of dollars, to sign with the Philadelphia 76ers for a chance at a fresh start and a shot at winning a championship alongside Joel Embiid, Tyrese Maxey, and Paul George. Despite rejecting Miami's contract that would have paid him around $65 million over 5 years, Martin opted for a 4-year deal worth more than $32 million with the 76ers. There were various factors at play in my decision, Martin explained at the Sixers' New Jersey facility on Tuesday. A lot happened behind the scenes. Ultimately, I made that choice. I can't change the past. Now, I'm focused on Philly and doing everything I can to help us win a championship. That's my main goal now. The 28-year-old Martin has averaged 8.5 points over 5 seasons, including the last 3 with the Heat, where he earned a reputation for elevating his performance in the playoffs. In Philadelphia, Martin is expected to fill a starting role as the 76ers overhaul their roster following another early playoff exit. They made significant moves, including signing Paul George from the Clippers and securing Tyrese Maxey's long-term commitment. Team president Daryl Morey also added free agents Andre Drummond and Eric Gordon to the roster while re-signing Kelly Oubre Jr. These moves are aimed at pushing the team forward in the competitive NBA landscape, where they haven't advanced past the second round since 2001. The goal is to challenge reigning NBA champions Boston and keep pressure on teams like New York, Indiana, and Milwaukee to remain competitive in the Eastern Conference. George signed a massive 4-year, $212 million deal with the Sixers in free agency, while Maxey agreed to a 5-year extension worth $204 million. Martin went undrafted after playing for North Carolina State and Nevada in college. He faced uncertainty entering the NBA and had to prove himself in the G League. After a stint with Charlotte, he became a standout during the 2023 playoffs, helping the Heat reach the NBA Finals. He could start the 2024 season as the power forward for a team that hasn't won an NBA title since 1983. Martin averaged 19.3 points on 60% shooting during the playoffs and scored a career-high 26 points in Game 7 of the Eastern Conference Finals against Boston. He performed well in earlier rounds against top-seeded Milwaukee and New York. His impressive play caught the attention of both the 76ers and Heat, who were eager to have him on their rosters. Ultimately, Martin chose Philadelphia, although it came at a personal cost, providing the Sixers with a valuable addition at a favorable price. I mean, of course you always want to maximize your earnings, Martin reflected. It's part of the game, part of life. You take chances, sometimes they pay off, sometimes they don't. Miami Heat tried and failed to acquire DeMar DeRozan and Tyus Jones. The Miami Heat have made no major additions to their roster this summer outside of drafting Kel'el Ware and signing Alec Burks. Their quiet offseason might not be due to a lack of trying, as ESPN's Bobby Marks has revealed the team aggressively pursued DeMar DeRozan and Tyus Jones, but could not get a deal done due to nobody wanting to take on Duncan Robinson's contract. They would have loved to get DeMar DeRozan. They tried as heck to get DeMar DeRozan, but nobody wanted Duncan Robinson, no offense. They have one first-round pick to trade. They wanted Tyus Jones, they couldn't make a deal here. Robinson is making $39.2 million over the next 2 seasons. While it isn't a completely untouchable contract for a player who is one of the best shooters in the NBA, it isn't a price teams want to pay for one-dimensional shooters anymore. The Heat cannot move off Robinson without adding draft assets, and it would be unwise for them to move off their remaining tradable pick for a Robinson salary dump. DeRozan was signed and traded to the Sacramento Kings, with the Kings finding cap dump partners in San Antonio to facilitate the acquisition. He averaged 24.0 points, 4.3 rebounds, and 5.3 assists last season. Tyus Jones' future is still unclear, with the point guard arguably the best remaining name on the market. He averaged 12.0 points and 7.3 assists last season for the Wizards. The Heat will likely keep trying to get a Tyus deal in their favor, but it's unclear who they can even target in free agency at this point. The Heat aren't one of the premier teams in the Eastern Conference after the franchise's inability to make needle-moving trades recently. They took a swing at adding Terry Rozier last season, but the move hasn't transformed them into contender. Adding Jimmy Butler and Tyler Herro's consistent injury struggles to the mix, the Heat don't have enough to contend. The East has a clear top three in the Celtics, 76ers, and Knicks, with the Bucks still eyed as contenders by most. The Heat are arguably in a worse position than young teams like the Pacers and Cavaliers, while the Orlando Magic had also jumped them in the standings last season. They're looking like a play-in team on paper, something that won't help Bam Adebayo's desire to win Defensive Player of the Year. Jimmy Butler's future with the franchise is also cloudy, so there might come a point next season when the Heat have to look to a possible rebuild by moving off Butler before he leaves in free agency. That is the worst-case scenario, as everyone in the organization will be hoping a healthy year from their stars is enough to make a title push. They'll be active in looking for partners to take on Robinson's money so that the Heat could find an upgrade. If not, they'll likely have to settle for being a middle-of-the-pack team next season. Will Jimmy Butler sign with West playoff contender in 2025? Chagrined by the Miami Heat's reluctance to offer him a max contract extension, five-time All-NBA selection Jimmy Butler will become a free agent in 2025. In what's now a contract year for the star forward, teams can expect him to play as hard as ever. However, while Butler auditions for what could be his next team, there's been little discussion about his potential suitors. With that being said, it's never too early to think about next year. Here are the two teams who may have the best shot at signing Butler. With $110.6 million in projected cap space next offseason, the Houston Rockets could be big spenders for another summer. The last time they had deep pockets, they signed Fred VanVleet and Dillon Brooks to rich contracts. In 2025, it could be Butler. Butler was raised just outside of Houston, in little-known Tomball. After a decade of stardom, the 34-year-old may have outgrown small city living. Nonetheless, the chance to play close to home has appeared to many a player. Besides, Texas may not have the weather of South Florida, but Houston is one of the most enchanting metropolises in the country. Why Gareth Southgate's England tactics aren't working yet that may draw Butler's attention enough for him to envision living outside of Miami. However, if the Rockets want him to consider leaving the Heat to play for them, their culture and competitiveness will be the biggest determinants. In terms of the former, Butler and Rockets head coach Ime Udoka are two peas in a pod. Their fiery styles can rub some people the wrong way, but their desire to win is undeniable. In fact, pushing those buttons helps their teams extend their boundaries. If signed outright by the Rockets, they'd have to renounce the rights to several free agents and decline all of their club options to free up the maximum amount of cap space. They don't need the whole pie to feed Butler though, just $50 to $60 million worth. They can free up much of that by declining the team options of VanVleet, $44.9 million, and A.J. Griffin, $6 million. If that's not enough, they could also waive Jock Landale's non-guaranteed $8 million salary. Joining him on the roster would be Brooks, Amen Thompson, Reed Shepherd, Cam Whitmore, Jabari Smith Jr., Tari Eason, and Aaron Holiday. With a bevy of high-quality on-ball defenders, they increase their chances of making deep playoff runs in and of itself. From there, the Rockets can re-sign restricted free agent Alperen Sengun, who still figures to be their most consistent scorer. Jalen Green is likely the odd man out. Still, as he'll be a restricted free agent, the Rockets may be able to move him for additional assets. And you, fan? What do you think of the situation of Jimmy Butler? Leave your opinion in the comments.